So now we are going to start the panel discussion, and I see that you are also answering the questions there. There is only the if Azure, if Archer is in the Azure Marketplace, and yes, it is. And so they are asking, and before we start with the panel, it's an additional one that they say like, yeah, so if I bought a 3-year savings plans and 2/3 of it is unused, you'll keep crediting back for the 2/3 until the contract ends. And they say, yes, those Victor Garcia are not me. I am the only presenter, so you can. We are going to answer all the questions at the end of the panel. So now we are going to start with the paneling, and then after that we are going to have the talk of Oliver. So we are going to have a short discussion now, and then we go with the talk. So first I want to ask about the mistakes that we are seeing. I think one of the most interesting one is the automation part, because we are seeing that it could be a problem if done bad, I think, because you, let's say, scale a wrong process. But I also think that automation is something that you should be doing as soon as you have it clear to be applying to, right? So maybe Nilofar, we can start with you about what do you think about the automation process in the commitment matter, and how you have, work with it or envision it.
Yeah, to be honest, Victor, that's a really good point. And while Aaron was presenting, that's something that I actually noted it down, that starting automation too early is a mistake, in my opinion. I think we are all engineers, we are all tech nerds, and we really want to automate anything and everything we can, right? I want to automate my milk order with a smart fridge and get it delivered to myself, right? But it's too early sometimes. We still need to find a good balance. We need to understand what's the value we will be bringing to our business. The other good point what Aaron mentioned here was on the customer churn side, right? If you're automating it too early, committing it too early, if your business changes, if your market changes, you'll be actually making some losses instead of making profits. So my opinion, my personal, my professional expertise I would definitely go for waiting for it for the right amount of time. Again, who would decide what's as soon as possible or what's the right amount of time, right? That's kind of depends on your business. That depends on the circumstances you are in. And a lot of things changes, right? For example, I think any external factor could affect your businesses as well. So at that time, automating it, but still in a more human way, would be much more better rather than just be super excited about automation and going full in. I would rather say that take your time, understand the requirement, and then go and automate it in a small scales.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I don't know if Oliver, do you have anything to add on the automation part? I'm sure you have seen like a lot of stuff.
I do. I must admit that I do not 100% agree with this perspective. I do believe that automations is a way moving forward for basically for everything. So if you look at the way we engineer things, we have DevOps, let's say. What do they do the first week? They start scaffolding things and they want to run a CI/CD pipeline. Why? Because it just drives creativity. It's not going to produce any errors, and you will have the maximum productivity and security that things will run forward. Now, I do understand you might be careful, but the carefulness comes from, do I understand how automation works? And if it works to the right way and it does function the way it was tested for, then hands down, no human being will do a formula better than a machine. That's just given science. It's pure. So I believe the way I speak to my customers typically, we try to put, and this is not really just related to rates. Rates is one thing, of course, it's one of many pillars. But in general, the more you automate things and remove the human factor, the more reliability and consistency. And in that case, the more savings you produce. The least, I don't think human beings will be smarter in the way they calculate things. There's no way. An Excel sheet will never give you a better result than a machine. That's not going to happen. That's why people spend time doing this. So my view for automations, go for it, but at least understand how it works. It's not that you will go blindly on any sort of commercialism, but rather if you understand how that works, then hands down, go for it actually early on, if you just understand what it does. That's my view.
Yeah,
I
I
agree
think
with
it's
that.
yeah.
I think that was kind of my point. I actually agree with that, Oliver. It's about the crawl, walk, run. The problem is customers always go to the run, and maybe that's fine if you're testing out like in a dev test environment, Kubernetes scheduling automation, but you can't go to the run with commitments because it's a one-way door. So we say go for the crawl and walk, and then the run is automate. Hopefully, customers listen to us and don't automate right away and then find themselves upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends what you're automating, right? So it's easier to automate DevOps pipeline and stuff. But when I agree what you said, that if you're automating commitments, it's a one-way door. If you're automating it, then you're committed for like a year or 3 years. You don't want to go down that road too early. So, I mean, definitely automate it, but still more in a human fashion.
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out the second part, one of the part that was not being able to, or not taking into account all the services in all the providers, and especially in AWS, that have commitment available, because we are super used to, let's say, relate commitments to RDS and to EC2, and that's it. And people tend to forget from other services, such as the options that Fargate does, or you can apply the savings plan to land and so on. So I think that is something that people tend to forget, because when I got into engagements related to commitment, it was only focused on full on EC2 and nothing else, and nothing goes to the picture. So what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you see it frequently that they are people are super focusing to EC2, and then the other services are ignored? I don't know, Oliver.
So I like the point that Aaron mentioned earlier. There is no point of buying just one sort of commitments. So it would be dumb if you would just rely on one service and one way of doing things. Of course, that's why you have more flexibility, and that needs a lot of planning. Probably in the talk that I'm just about to give, this point I have to touch here as well, because when it comes to planning, you have to think about what do you need in terms of, I will have to cover that with reservations, that one was convertible reservations, that one was saving plans. And probably that's the easiest way to think about it. It's not one way, one thing. You have to diverse. It's just like spending the way you also invest your money. You don't put it all in one basket, right? You have to think about security versus amount of savings, amount of flexibility that you need, and you have to diversify your portfolio when it comes to that. Even the way you buy it, you have to think about where you buy it, right? So certain things you can buy them right in the subscription level or the account level, while other things you have to buy it in the shared level. All these things require plenty of planning. So there's the problem with trades that often people do not understand the full scope of how that really works. You need to have a good understanding before you start clicking the first button to commit to things. And therefore you have to have at least a little bit of an understanding how it works, where to buy things, and how to which services I should cover with what, and then go for it.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that, Nilofar? I'm curious about seeing also your perspective on that matter.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's a good strategy. That's generally I've seen a lot of organization going for. It's never a good idea just to go for one sort of commitment, just go buy savings plans blindly, not incorporate any RIs. That wouldn't be the best dollar value return you're getting for your commitment. Also, when you're going for chargeback model, it's really important to understand that which accounts which accounts you are covering for your commitments, right? So and which are on demand. When you just buy in your master account, sometimes it becomes challenging to go for appropriate chargeback models. It requires a lot of work from FinOps team to create these chargeback policies for different business units. So yeah, I mean, it's a complicated thing. It's not sort of one answer, one formula that would fit everybody, right? But the general standard option, I would say that go for first RIs, convertible RIs, and then there are some other workloads, for example, Lambdas or something which you are not able to cover with RIs, top it up with the savings plans.
Okay. Yep, that's a good one. I think you introduced an interesting point on the chargeback system that is always something that it expands when dealing with commitments. And moving on one of the topics that I think it's a bit, well, let's say large perspective, or one of the topics that you only deal with once there is a large organization in place, is the PPA, EDP agreements. Those are super important because they tend to expand when there is a lot of money in place. So you're probably, in my experience, I haven't dealt with that like in first person view, but I don't know if maybe you, Niloufar, had dealt with that, or what is your experience related to PPA or EDPs?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, and I think that actually brings a good blanket savings. It's not that only your compute or your databases would be covered by PP or EDP. The good point is that any of your cloud spend would be covered by EDP discount. So even though the discount percentage, as in the number value, you might not find it quite high. It depends. It varies from, I mean, I've seen in my experience between 5 to 25%, sometimes even a little bit on the north of 25% as well. But still, the savings you get, the dollar value savings you get out of this sort of commitment is much more higher than you would get out of your compute savings plans or your IDS RIs and stuff like that, because this commitment would cover all of your spending. So be it CloudWatch, be it CloudTrail, be it any other AWS services, all of them would be covered with this PPA. Sometimes you get better rate on your storage commitments, right? Depending on the sort of business you are in. So you can negotiate better price and you can get better discount on the data transfer fees if you are transferring a lot of inter-region data, right? So in my opinion, that's a very good savings potential for any organization.
Okay. And Oliver, what have you seen with your experience related to this PPA or EDPs?
So one of the points that I would like to discuss short in my talk is how to measure your wins. I've seen the discussions about ESR, or effective saving rates, to be very effective, because simply you have to check all the options. So one option is, I'm buying a commitment, but I'm using only half of it and I'm getting losses in it, right? Perhaps now with our discussion with Aaron, you might even have a better win on that one, because now we have a little bit more security perhaps, and this would raise the amount of savings you will do eventually. While in different terms, sometimes literally not even buying a commitment, just going blind on demand and just use more automated shutdowns would even be a better option than buying commitment at all. So my simple take on this is, don't follow the commercial system of telling you you're saving big money if you buy this commitment or that one and just fall into it blindly. Try to always have a metric of calculation. What would be my options? If I take option A and I calculated it and I see that in 1 year I will be saving 50%. Option B is with a commitment I'm saving maybe 10%. Without a commitment I'm actually saving 15% if I just do different measures. Then don't even go for a commitment, but you need to measure it the proper way. And that's what probably many people do not get in the right context, because they rely on false matrices such as coverage and utilization. I hope I will cover this point as well in the upcoming talk. But my point is, I would like to utilize whatever discounts you might get, if it makes sense to your usage, to have the maximum amount of savings. So commitments do not always alone give you the highest savings. You might look for different options, like enterprise agreements or whatever it is. Even with on demand, it might still be higher than your commitment if you can measure it properly.